Welcome to When Black Men Talk. You know by now, we basically live a provocative conversation, and this conversation is not going to be any different. It's going to basically move the needle right to the right when it comes to provocative. I have the honor of having a gentleman that's the international advocate spokesman for paternity fraud victims and their families to be free from the archaic laws and legal abuse. With that being said, I want to welcome Mr. Carnell Smith to the show. Welcome, sir. How you feeling?
I'm doing well, Mark. Hey, thank you for the opportunity to be on your show.
No, I'm happy to have you, man. It's interesting because over the years, when you look at paternity, it's one of those things that years ago, I'll go to an old saying. They should say, mama's, mama's maybe, no, daddy's maybe, but mama's something. I forgot. I heard it so much, but for some reason, it's escaped my mind now. And over the years, we've seen where paternity has become such a huge thing, and kind of in a sense because we see it on television so much. But as I start to kind of research and hear some things, man, I read where most paternity tests that are done, 40% tend to be not of the father. And that might even be higher now, but I wanted to get your reaction on that first because that just blew me away. I would have thought it might have been like 5-10%, but they're basically saying 4% or higher of the tests that are done does not belong to the actual father.
Well, first, let me clarify the statistics. And what you were looking for was mama's baby, daddy's maybe.
There it is.
Maybe is the question. So as Carnell Smith, the paternity coach, I do help men, women, and families address questions around family identity. And I do that using DNA testing. I was a marketer of DNA services internationally for over 10 years. I also help them in terms of using law and public policy. And then I teach people how to become an advocate, become a civil or citizen advocate. So to your question, the statistics are of the general population across the North America. Geneticists have estimated 5 to 15% of the entire population. That would be 5 to 15% of 300 million men and boys who've been accused of being the father of a child are not. And many of those folks are taking care of somebody else's kids and don't know. Now, complement that with the data from the American Association of Blood Banks. This is the accrediting body that provides the accreditation for all of the DNA labs in North America. There's about 44 of them that provide legal parentage testing. And what that means is of those men and boys who actually took the paternity test, 30% on average of those who take the test, and in excess of over 110,000 per year, they take the test, turn out to not be the dad. But thanks to shows like yours of when black men, is it black men speak?
Black Men Talk. Close enough. You got it.
When black men talk. Well, to your show, and I've been on Dr. Phil and about 200 other shows, television, radio, etc., featured in Time magazine. The popularization of the term paternity fraud I've been pushing since 1999 has led to a greater increase in public awareness. So as a direct result, more men and parents of teen boys are opting to get a paternity test right behind being accused or alleged to be the fathers. And in one district in Detroit, it was 80% of the guys who took the test turned out to not be the dads. So if I frame this so you can see when public awareness works, and due to the increased sexual freedom of women and girls, in which I'm not opposed to that. I'm just saying they got to get the consequences to go with it. So 8 out of 10 men and teen boys who are accused in that one area in Detroit took the test, turned out it wasn't them, and then multiple tests later, you find out who's the child's father. And then the highest number of paternities tests that I know of being done to try to find the father of one kid, the mother had test 22 guys before we found the guy.
Good gracious, man. Whoa. I was as I learned more about you, I came across something, and I wanted to kind of take you there and kind of start there in a sense because you spoke that you believe that truth is a good thing, and when we hear that, you think, okay, what's really behind it? Of course, we know truth is a good thing, but when you look at the world we live in now, truth is not valued. It's not something that's pushed to the forefront. It's not seeked. It's basically avoided. So I wanted to get your opinion because if you're out here saying this, truth is a good thing, right there, man, I'm sure you're gonna have some people looking at you like, "What the?" I hate to use the word side eye, but look, what is this brother really trying to say?
That's a great question, Mark. So that actually came out of some interviews where I've done some what we would refer to as high conflict opposition interviews, where the other side was vehemently opposed to my position. And here's my position: I believe that men and children should have a protected right to know from the very beginning whether or not they are related, and the most accurate way to determine if they are related is not asking the child's mother. It's not holding the kid next to the guy asking who they look like. The most accurate way to determine who that kid's father is in an impartial, unbiased way is with a legal DNA paternity test. So why I say truth is a good thing is there seems to be no problem when a woman gets assigned to somebody else's child, then biology matters. If she leaves the hospital with the wrong baby, biology matters. Why? Because the truth is that she's not that child's mother. The truth is someone swapped babies on her. Or how about this? There are people who are actually stealing babies out of hospitals, and that led to a whole development of security protocols that got put in place. Did you know that in some places, the neonatal ward and the entire floor where the babies are actually has armed guards? They have
Hmm.
DNA and fingerprint scanning, and before you can check out of that hospital, they have a vested interest to make sure that woman who came in pregnant leaves with the baby that she delivered. But now let's flip the script. If a man or boy is duped, deceived, lied to, whether it be accidentally lied to or purposefully lied to induce his signature on a document, getting him to effectively admit to paternity before he had proof, well, then the court's position, the family court and the entire family court industry says, if he didn't take the test then because he believed in her, she persuaded him, she used uh, emotional, psychological tactics, because the whole strategy that has been coached and taught is to get the man or boy to hold the baby and then tell him how much the baby looks like him. This is an emotional manipulation tactic because at that moment in time, he doesn't have the benefit of legal advice. He doesn't necessarily fully understand the full impact of signing a confession, admitting you did something just on her word alone that you don't have proof. And amazingly, if he finds out later that it's not his baby, do you know that many of the courts will say, well, it's his fault that he signed the paper and he should have got a test in the beginning? Well, I'm saying that if we're all in agreement that truth is in the best interest of all parties, I don't want to ask the mother a thing. Let's do DNA testing at birth. We'll make sure all of the kids that checked out of that hospital went with the people they came with. And even if it's cases of surrogacy and assisted pregnancy and stuff like that, in those cases, somebody knows up front they're not related to the baby. But let's not use emotional manipulation, shaming tactics, insults, and guilt tripping, and a and a positioning of the mother must be right because she said, "Well, I told you the child is yours." I've done enough DNA testing here, Mark, to tell you there's more than one occasion where the mother has lied, and only after that test result came back at 0%, that is when the guy first discovered she was for the streets.
Hmm. It's interesting because listening to you. I want to say one thing for sure, because I remember my last two children that I had when they were born. And my first daughter was born. She was very young. Wasn't thinking about that then, but going back to how you said have the guards now at the hospitals. But the last two, when they, were born, immediately when they moved, I moved. Where they went, I went. And that went on for a period of time just to make sure all that could be avoided. And it's interesting, and I want to kind of zero back to something you said earlier about the truth and people, you had to say that because of what was going on. But it's amazing in this country where how when a woman speaks, it's supposed to quiet all the noise. Nothing else supposed to be said, and we're supposed to take her for her word. And I would think that some of the stuff that are some of the people that was kind of speaking against you and didn't want to accept what you were saying, kind of is that mindset. Why are you questioning a woman if she says X, Y, Z? But as men, we get questioned, we get looked upon, we get basically the flashlight go up and down us. But it seemed like when we start to question a woman at a point of basically being intimate with someone else, we need to stand back. Don't you dare cross that line. Was that some of the feelings that you kind of came across as you started to move into basically doing the paternity?
It was indeed. Until I stopped to look at the gender of the largest group of people who was contacting me to try to help men and boys in cases of paternity fraud. And I think we've progressed very deep in the conversation, but in fairness to your audience, we need to define paternity fraud, because some people have one perception of what they think it is. And I'm telling you, as the chief and international spokesman on the topic, and also legislative advocate who has been quite successful in a degree of getting laws changed, paternity fraud is primarily when the mother or the legal guardian of a child alleges that a male is the father of the child, and the underlying allegation is that he is the biological father of the child, while at the same time concealing from him that he is not the father, or that he might not be the father because she knows or the other party knows there are multiple paternity candidates. And why do I call it fraud? If you look up the textbook definition for legal fraud, it is the concealment of a material fact. Here's the one person who always knows whether there are multiple paternity candidates. And it is not the guy who's being manipulated and conned into signing a document, which primarily applies to teen boys and unmarried men. This manipulation happens because the guy was not present when she was involved with the other paternity candidate. So unless he personally saw the acts that lead to pregnancy with other people, if she says, "You the only one, yes, it's your baby, I'm 100% sure," even if she has her fingers crossed behind her back saying, "I hope he the daddy, I hope he the daddy, I hope he don't ask for a test," that leaves the environment potentially ripe for fraud. So paternity fraud is a lawsuit alleging or claiming someone is the biological father of a child while simultaneously concealing the information from him. Let me tell you what, in interviewing men who've actually been duped and tricked, and teen boys and parents of the teen boys, all of them had this one thing in common. If the mother or the legal guardian of the child had said in the very beginning, "Well, I can't say with absolute certainty that you are the father of the child. You are one of the potential fathers, or you're 1 out of 10, or you're 1 out of 3, or you're 1 out of 33. Well, all of them said, "I would have demanded a paternity test. I wouldn't have signed nothing. You couldn't have made me sign it. You couldn't have shamed me. You couldn't have insulted me. You couldn't have guilt tripped me." So this environment is such that, why is there so much opposition to men and boys getting the truth up front? Well, they're trying to make women and girls look good. And I say, at this point, we're trying to get the truth for the kid. We're trying to get the truth so that the child can be supported emotionally, mentally, financially, spiritually, etc., by their own families. I think the obligation and duties start with the people who actually caused the pregnancy: biological mother, biological father. The only other category that should exist outside of that is adopted parents, which means people knowingly, willingly sign up with knowledge up front they're not related, and they take on full parental duties with that knowledge. That should leave no room or margin for slickery, trickery, lying, conning, manipulation. And you do know, as women are the fairer sex, they can't generally can't physically overpower and make the guy do something, but using their cunning ways and emotional tactics, they've often learned how to manipulate men and boys from a very young age, even as girls. And for dare to say, this is an area where men and boys get caught unaware.
It's When Black Men Talk, myself, Mark Elliott, and Mr. Carnell Smith. And we're speaking about paternity. And I love the fact that you call it fraud, which it basically is, and it basically turns into a lawsuit. I love that because in reality, there are a lot of women aren't aware of such. When they realize maybe just the possibility that you can be caught up in a lawsuit, maybe they think twice about just dragging anyone or having anyone basically sign the birth certificate. That fact I love. I mean, I'm all behind that 1,000%. I'm just curious now, how did you find yourself basically taking on this journey of paternity? How did that get ignited inside of you, sir?
Well, first, that's a great question. What happens a lot when you do see someone take up a cause, often it has impacted them or someone in their life who they love or care about, and they would very much desire to see it not happen to others. I believe the term is an altruistic motive. In my case, a former girlfriend actually got pregnant 6 weeks after I broke up with her, contacts me, claims that she got pregnant while I was still in a relationship with her, and I didn't find out until 11 years later that child was not mine. And I took 2 DNA tests, subpoenaed her mother, her girlfriend, and her brother. And then it was only then 11 years later that I got the entire truth of the matter out, that she got pregnant with another guy in another state after I broke up with her, which wasn't the story she told. She should have never contacted me. But after dating her for 2.5 years, I was unaware of her ever telling the smallest lie. So she had the benefit of my confidence in her integrity. And I was unaware at that time that I was being duped.
That story probably sounds familiar to a lot of men and young men out here, realistically, that years later, in your case, you said early on, but years later, it pops up to where you could be the potential father and you're not. And some folks will listen and think in a sense that we're trying to badge women. No, like we said earlier, and like you said, the truth is a good thing. And for many reasons, as you basically have spoken on. And it's amazing when it comes down to a child where we're willing, I say we, but I'm going to just say people are willing to basically play around and use that child as a pawn and pick and choose where they want to biologically have that child be a part of someone else's life when there's no bloodline at all. That to me is a mind that is, I don't even want to characterize it, but that is a mind within itself. And to live the lie for years, like with 11 years with yourself, that's a lie that they lived with for years, did all they could to cover it up and act like it didn't exist. Come on, what is really behind that? When you think about it, and I'm not putting this out to you as a question. I'm just kind of saying that so listeners can actually hear what rolls behind that. Because you can't tell me you're thinking of the child. You can't say to me, yeah, I'm considering my child. You're not. When you're living a lie, when you're picking and choosing, you try to hide the fact that you slept with someone else. The truth is the truth. Why aren't you thinking about the child? The child is here basically, or the child is coming. But it's amazing, and I've said this before. We have done shows kind of highlighting a little bit of this. Women don't get stained; they just don't.
No
They don't get stained for
consequences.
whatever reason. For whatever reason, society will choose not to stain a woman. But if a man basically has a child and don't pay child support, oh, he's a deadbeat, he's this and that. What do you call a woman that slept with 22 men and brought 22 men in to take a paternity test for one child? What does society call her? What do we say about her? And I don't want to hear about her growing up. I want to hear a word that we can call her, because she deserved to be called something. When we call men everything underneath the sun. But you spoke earlier. You've done a lot of variety shows, Dr. Phil. I mean, you've done a lot, bro. I mean, so much. This is one thing I definitely want to get into, because is this time when you brought your own case. I want to make sure people hear this clearly. You brought your own case to the Supreme Court without a lawyer. I'm going to say that again. Give me a chance to let that ring for a second. Because a lot of times we feel we must go to someone else to help us do something that we can do on our own. And I love the fact that you were bold enough, strong enough to know you could take this to the Supreme Court without somebody speaking for you. I want to hear about that. Please share that with us.
Okay. Well, in the journey to the U.S. Supreme Court, or the Supreme Court of the United States, also called SCOTUS, after I got those 2 DNA tests, my clarity allowed me to say, there's no way this woman did not know that she was intimately involved with someone else. And I sued her for fraud. And the trial court dismissed my case, left me on the hook to pay her for child support, reduced my parenting time down to none. The child's mother wouldn't let me see the child anymore, while still demanding that I pay her nearly 40% of my take-home pay. She sued me for $1,800 a month. Now, my attitude was this. By this time now, I'm married. I have a child. My newborn's at home with my wife, and I've even DNA tested the newborn with my wife. At that point, the judge ruled and said, Mr. Smith, it's your fault that you didn't find out sooner. And with a side eye, what the blazes? How would I know this woman was in another state with her other boyfriend, who I don't know? And upon subpoenaing her to answer under oath, when did you inform Mr. Smith that someone else could be the child's father? Her answer under oath, I never told Mr. Smith about my relationship with Mr. E.W. because that was none of Mr. Smith's business. She was indignant about being asked to have disclosed that. So typically, if you lose at the trial court, for a lot of guys, your case is over, and you have a limited number of days to file an appeal to the next higher court. So I went from the state, as far as the Superior Court, and then I filed to the Georgia Court of Appeals. And at the same time, I also started lobbying for law at the same time, doing these things in parallel. I had a twofold strategy. I recognized that men and boys in the other states, most of them are going to have a similar struggle to me, even if they could get the DNA test. And many of them have gone to jail, gone to prison. I'm facing going to prison right now because I refuse to pay after I now have 2 DNA tests to prove I've been lied to. So twofold strategy. One, get my family out of this trap, which is why then my book is named Trapped by Law. Number 2, can we get a higher court decision that other men and boys could use as a precedent to help get them out of being trapped by law? So my state appellate court looked at the data that we sent in, all of the facts, look at the fact that the mother, she knowingly and willingly concealed information, which is textbook legal fraud. The appellate court sent me back one line, petition denied. I appealed to the Georgia Supreme Court. By now, I have data from the child support agency in the state of Georgia that over 33,000 men and boys have been tested in like the past 3 calendar years, turned out to not be the dads. And most of them were still trapped. State Supreme Court refused to hear the case also. Well, I'm running out of money at this point. My only other option now is, if I can keep my case alive, is I got to beat the clock to get my case to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they need to be convinced of a compelling interest of a national matter. And I filed on constitutional grounds, and I did file pro se, which means self-representing. You can say pro per or pro se. And I made 2 constitutional challenges. One, once there was irrefutable evidence to prove that was a pregnancy I did not commit, just like my tagline says, if the genes don't fit, you must acquit. The lower court should have been required to vacate the order against me, overturn the case, and not charge me with any past money, charge me with any future money. And then that would free me up to go after my ex for civil damages for the money she caused me to pay her that she would have never gotten. Now, in my mind, if we can establish a national precedent, I forgot, the second part of that is the court should not have any jurisdiction over a man or boy that they have an order on based on his constitutional rights to not be made into an involuntary servant, also called slavery, also called peonage. Because listen, if you don't pay, it is under the threat of jail and prison. And once you exceed $2,501, you can be charged and convicted as a third-degree felon. Let me say that again. The stakes are high for men and boys in this area, and we get taken advantage of because of what we don't know. And I'm presenting those 2 questions to the justices at the U.S. Supreme Court. They reviewed it. And by this time, I'd gotten a law passed in the state of Georgia. I got roughly 214 out of 218 legislators to support my legislative bill. And I'm thinking that's going to help men and boys in the state of Georgia. Never thought I needed it. So now these things are still happening parallel. The justices demand that I provide them with a supplemental brief with the copy of the Georgia law. So now I got to spend even more money out of my pocket. I'm already out probably $40,000 at this point. I can no longer afford my attorney. I got the brief put together. I worked very late at night. My wife was with me at FedEx Kinko's, putting together the initial brief, the prior brief, the supplemental brief, all the responses, and I got everything in. And I thought, in my naivete, finally, we're going to get the matter heard. There's going to be justice that all men and boys in a situation like me, they're going to be able to get their cases overturned in every U.S. state and every U.S. territory so that they will no longer be used as income-producing property for the state. After I sent the second brief in, they reviewed it, had that second meeting, and I have a letter. This is Smith versus Odom, U.S. Supreme Court case 01-1520. You can look it up, 01-1520. Petition denied with no reason why they denied it. And if you don't know why they denied it, you can't file a motion for reconsideration for why they denied it. So eventually, I believe Almighty God caused me to remember something I put in the Georgia legislation that I personally had forgotten. And after rereading it, I went back to court on February 6, 2003, using the law that I co-wrote, and I won. And I walked out of court free at last.
I want to touch on a couple of things here, man. First, I want to touch on, I love here when you said your wife was with you at Kinko's and Federal Express. And I want you to kind of speak to that, because a lot of times we realize, sometimes we think we're alone, but I want to kind of understand her mindset and how things were between you two going through this process.
Well, this caused her so much angst and anxiety. She was pregnant at the time I got served. And she thought I was about to get arrested when the sheriff showed up at my door. And here she is. She is within 4 weeks of delivery. It caused such a panic for her that she went into early labor. I'm fortunate and blessed to say our child was born healthy, had to stay in the hospital a little longer, but this caused such anxiety and stress for my wife that she started to lose her hair. And she says, I'm with you. We're going to get through this. We don't know how we're going to get through this. And she stuck with me all the way through. And she did that. She backed up with action. She backed it up with prayer. I even asked her to speak before the legislators because, see, if you're a paternity fraud victim and you're in a new family, when you have 40% of your net income taken away, you've reduced the standard of living and quality of life in the household for the children that are that guy's kids. And it's also going to affect the wife. It's also going to eliminate being able to replace your car. It's going to eliminate your ability to take a vacation. It can mess with your ability to buy groceries. So the wife is going to be affected. And as a result, the number one group of people who contact me trying to help a man or a teenage boy as a paternity fraud victim are women. It is the wife of a guy, girlfriend, fiance, sister, or his mother, because she believes that if I was able to do something to get my case overturned, maybe I can help them do something about their son, their husband, their boyfriend, because they all agree truth is a good thing.
But why do you feel the men are reluctant to step forward? And I love to hear that the women are stepping forward. But why are men, in your opinion, willing to step forward and be bold enough and knowing that this challenge aren't theirs? Why are they just basically complacent and not moving forward to undo and work on the fraud?
Well, let me correct that. It is not that they are complacent, because you got to understand, I've been doing this over 20 years now. By and large, they don't believe they can win. There's this thing called learned helplessness. I don't believe I can do anything about it. Therefore, I don't do anything about it. And therefore, I lose, and it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. The women, on the other hand, that contact me trying to help him, like his current wife, fiance, sister, mother, sometimes even his grandmother, I'm having to stop them from going physically after the other woman and pimp slapping that other woman, because they are mad and they're fired up. They were like, well, why are these laws so unjust? Why are these laws biased against our men and boys? Well, how do you punish a man or boy for not agreeing to be a slave and pay child support for a child that's not his, that he doesn't agree to? So initially, that woman who contacts me, once she gets the guy introduced to me and we have a consultation, and the guy finds out about me and sees my YouTube channel, he sees that I've been aired on over 146 countries talking about the topic. And when I was on Dr. Phil, I was there with one of my clients who's a doctor in Los Angeles. They see that somebody's fighting back. So therefore, if I have that person on my team helping me, I have a better chance of fighting back than I do myself, where I don't know what to do. I've never done it before. And mind you, I was in that position initially. I had never done it before. But because of the kind of man my father coached and guided me and mentored me to be, I don't quit easily. I have tenacity. I'm willing to seek out help. I'm willing to be coachable and learn from others who have done something exactly like what I want to do or similar to what I want to do. And then apply the work ethic and stay with it till it gets done. Listen, I attended every legislative hearing and subcommittee hearing. And whenever my legislator said, we're going to need public support, or we're going to need some victim statements, and I need you to show up with some of those women and families that are affected, and we want to hear from the women that are affected, I packed a room. But see, sometimes you need someone to inspire hope in people. And this is why I still do this today. I want to inspire hope that they can do something about the most unjust and unfair situation. It might take some time. It might take some effort. It may take some money, but you can get things done, and it won't take 1,000,000 people to do it.
I love your terminology, and I hear that, and I welcome that, and I accept that. But as a man, if you're taking 40% of my income illegally, that's enough for me. Ain't no one gonna have to come stand for me. That's enough. 40% of my income illegally. That's enough. But I want to go back also because you were saying that the lower court shut it down, and thinking why they might do such, and then you hit a statement that just to me rings so true: income producing for the state. When you think about that right there, whether you're the father or not, income producing for the state, they don't care. I don't think they would care. They're more concerned with the income. And it's maybe not they're trying to protect the woman, but they're trying not to lose these pennies that are coming into the state. Your response to that, and I could be way off, but when I'm listening to you, this is what I'm thinking.
You're not way off. You're spot on. According to the Social Security section in the law, this is subsection 666. And within that section, there is a section called Section 458 called Title Bonuses and Incentives to the State. Every state that participates and has modified their laws to allow them to qualify for federal reimbursement and bonuses and incentives from D.C., our own tax dollars are financing the very programs that work against men and boys. And they have key metrics that those various states and counties have to meet year over year. Number one, they get performance points based on how many paternities they get established. You did not hear me say how many fathers they identify, how many paternities you get established. So it doesn't matter whether or not he's the biological father. If by emotional manipulation, deception, trickery, dickery, doc, you get him to sign a document and don't take the paternity test, once he signs it, he has 60 days to rescind his decision in most states. And on the 61st day, he can't get his name off of it, even if the wife or girlfriend tells him to his face, I tricked you, fool. That ain't your baby. That's Rollo's baby, and you better have my money. The second index for the states is based on the amount of child support that's collected. So there is an incentive to set the child support payments to the highest amount possible based on the guy's income and based on him having minimum to no contact time with the child. The number one complaint out of fathers who want to be active dads, they're not complaining primarily about child support. They're primarily complaining about only being allowed to see the child for a maximum of 4 days a month. 1 day during the week, every week, and once every other weekend, 2 days on the weekend. How can you be an active, involved parent with 4 days out of the month and then 2 weeks in the summer? Well, the bonus pool for these states are such that some of the states have actually earned in the excess of $200 to $500 million by improving their numbers this year over the previous year. So as their year over year numbers are increasing and showing how much money they collect and how many paternities they get signed up, they don't have to be concerned. Now, there is $1 million or so allocated for DNA tests. And if it's in the welfare related realm, temporary assistance for needy families, and if that mother has actually signed up for some sort of state welfare related benefits, whether it be medical, food stamps, Section 8, etc., based on that, if that guy knows enough to ask for a paternity test in the first round, they're subsidizing the actual cost of the test to where him getting the test can be done for either free or for something nominal, like say $100, right? But the guy has to first be aware why he needs to get the test. Majority of these child support cases are not welfare TANF related cases now. the middle class has been drafted into this program as well. So it's no longer about low income cases. It is low income and everything up to multi-million dollar cases if those parties don't come to an agreement that between them that the court will rubber stamp. So with the incentive as part of a 50 to 60 billion dollar industry, family law and the family court is a 50 to 60 billion dollar industry. And the primary people who file for divorce are women. The primary people who are seeking alimony and child support are women. And they want to maintain the same standard of life after divorce that they had before the divorce. But they're the person that's causing and filing for the divorce. And that makes no sense logically to me, because that man's pile of money can't support his house that he's got to go get and his old house. He can't support both of them at the same lifestyle, which now leads into the next statistic. The number one reason for bankruptcies among men with divorce is his costs associated with that divorce. And often he gets hit with her legal fees and any other costs that get assigned to him, like a study. They want to have a psychology study and want to check out his mental state. A guy who was previously never known to have been a threat or a danger to anybody, all of a sudden now he's accused of being a threat or a danger. So now we need to have a psychoanalysis profile on him and everybody, and then they make him pay for it. If I sound a little passionate on the topic, it's with good reason.
Absolutely. I mean, just the mere fact, man, that I never understood this. And I've known some cats over the years that accept that to where they get their child, son or daughter, every other weekend. And like you said, a couple of times, and I'm like, that's not fathering. That's not. And to think that the law will mandate that and think that's beneficial to a child is utterly amazing. Utterly amazing. I mean, it's beyond belief. But that's how society and our laws are set up, in a sense, to where America pushes all the time. They care about kids. They don't give a damn about kids.
And that's
they
proof.
really don't.
That is proof.
Yeah. If you look behind the curtains, they don't care. They really don't. I mean, if you just listen to what you just said, it show and prove they don't care. They really don't. The only thing this country ever cared about is money. Cared about. So if you think they're caring about something outside of that, you need to wake up. Do you love podcasts? Yes. You ever thought about creating your own podcast? What are you waiting for? Get started at.
I have. I have.
Thank you.
I'm
reading something.
I'm in the beginning stages.
Beautiful. I'm reading something that may I'm going to read something that may apply to you. So getting started at podup.com. Podup is one of the sponsors of this podcast, and they would love to someday sponsor yours. Starting is very easy. It's creating an account at podup.com today. Podup has everything you need to run a full professional show with over 35 different tools with AI integration. Get a 7 free day trial with no credit card required and 15% off with the code when Black Men Talk 15. Don't have time to start a podcast? Check out podallies.com. Get a team of get a team of podcast professionals to all your website, social media, and editing work for your podcast. Pod Allies is an agency run by the folks who built the Podup podcasting software. Get started with them at podallies.com. Get 15% off when you sign up with Podup or Pod Allies with code when Black Men Talk. Podup and Pod Allies can't wait to create with you and launch your own podcast. Bro, when you're ready to start your podcast, I'll be the first one to help you out, man. You come right here.
Okay.
and we'll make sure, because this, what you're bringing, man, absolutely need to be out there, and you have to be out there strong, because I mean, you're dropping so much informational knowledge that a lot of us have no idea about. None. Yeah. The 60-day, a lot of, and you, like you said earlier, men walk in within that 60-day period. And for the most part, you have all the adrenaline. This is my baby. You have that going on. You're not thinking for a second, it's a possibility it may not be my child. Exactly. So you want to feel you're doing the right thing. And and some of these cats are being played. You're being played, walking in and here sign. And within 2 days of the baby being born, most time they bring you the paper to sign. Exactly. Within 2 days, if that long, they're bringing it to you to sign this. Yes, bring this to you. And by the way, you can take pictures, but sign this. Sign this right
Cause you
here.
look, cause you want your baby to have a father. Sign here.
Yes. And it's amazing to most men don't stop to think about this going in. And it's nothing against the woman, but we need to be open-minded about this. We really need to be and really start to think, because these high numbers just don't happen overnight. They don't. I know I
Yes.
talked about the phrase that
Yes.
old people said back in the day, but this has been going on for centuries. It's nothing new. And
Yes.
the court system obviously don't care. But I want to roll this to you, man, because the title of this alone, man, strikes me. Men's marriage strike. What is behind that?
You're talking about the book that was authored by Dr. Helen Smith. She's a forensic psychologist, and it was, I believe it is Men on Strike. I'm heavily featured throughout the book from our very long conversation. I'm gonna tell you why. One of the reasons men have said other people might want to get married, but not me. And it isn't because they're afraid of marriage. Let's clarify that. They are adamantly opposed to being financially and emotionally devastated from divorce. Because when we have gynocentric focus laws such that the scale is tipped heavily in favor of women, and it is not equal. It's not equally equal justice under law. It's not equal application under law. It's not equal responsibility under law. It's about assigning a bill to the guy, and then if he can't pay it, if he doesn't agree with it, he loses, in some cases, he loses assets and property and resources that he had before he got married. So what guys have started to observe is they saw what happened to the good guy. You know, the guy who never got in trouble, who went and got his degree, or he went to the military, he came back out, became an industrious blue collar worker. Now he got his own business. He's an electrician, he's a plumber, or he's doing a litany of other things. But he also seeing the blue collar, the white collar guy. He's seeing both of them get pimped and used in family court, and he sees that guy having to sleep on his mother's couch or at his brother's or sister's house, and see him lose hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars because the woman decided she wanted to blow up the family. And all of a sudden, she wants to get back out there. So when men started looking at the impact, and I believe this is something of a ripple effect from radical feminism, that says you strong and you independent, you don't need no man. It's amazing how much they say they still need his resources, and they still need his money. And I'm like, you chicks are hypocrites. and I'm saying you are diametrically opposed to your own ideology. Because if you're so independent, you need to stand on your own. Stand on your pumps, your flats, whatever it is should be standing on, and you should go for it. You should get out there and get it. Now, should he have a duty and responsibility for his children? Yes. The ones that are confirmed to be his, proven to be his, and the ones that he adopt. But should he be responsible for kids she had with her boyfriend? Absolutely not. Should he be responsible for her when she runs the streets and has herself a squad with multiple other guys? Listen, if you're big enough and grown enough to go out and do adult things, you got to do the adult thing and be responsible for the consequences. Now, I'm hated for saying that, but I tell the radical feminist group, I'm okay with you advocating for your position, but on this side, I'm going to advocate for men and boys, because we promote true equality here. Because when the men come up short, I call them out on it. When the
Yes, sir.
people, their teens do wrong and they're being irresponsible, and like one young man, he was so wild and loose, he's got 26 kids with 11 women, and he's complaining that he's suffering. I told him, I was like, brother, you're going to be broke for a long time, because just because they were offering something to you didn't mean your dumb behind had to take it, and your actions have consequences. So the best thing you could do now, cuz, is you're going to need to increase your marketable skills, and you're going to have to raise your capability of generating a higher income so that you can get out of a poverty hole that you dug yourself into. But I can't look the other way when the woman is doing the same thing and she's having 6 babies by 6 different dudes, and she tricked the one guy who has the highest income into thinking all 6 kids were his. That ain't right. That's unjust. That's unfair. And it should be called out. Now, I think we are capable of reforming these laws and having had some degree of success in helping people assemble their own team of citizen advocates. It's all about, are you willing to learn? Are you willing to do the work? And are you willing to show up and help obtain some sponsorship and make the case for why it needs to change, and come to your legislators with solutions? Too many people will come to their legislative bodies and just complain about an issue and bring no ideas. Don't bring any solutions. It's a lot, to me, I find it's a lot easier to get an audience when you can bring at least an idea of what you think should be done. And if you do some research, in many cases, we'll find there's a solution already working in another state. But it takes boldness, it takes courage, it takes willingness to step past your fear where you've never done it before. But what do you fear more? Doing nothing and being abused and face jail or prison, or go do something and put forth time, effort, and energy to change it so that you and your sons and your future sons can be free and operate in America as free citizens, not being trapped by law? Or do you just have a pity party? I'm not having a pity party, Mark.
No. Real men don't believe in pity parties.
No,
we just don't. We don't subscribe to it. We don't go to the club with it. We just don't. Real men don't do it. Carnell Smith, international advocate spokesman for paternity fraud victims and their families, to be free from the archaic laws and legal abuse that goes on in this country. And, I love this too. You have a book of your own. You spoke of the other book, but you have a book of your own. And you talked about it earlier, but I want to go deeper into that. Stop Paying Support for Paternity Fraud. I love it. Trapped by Law. Yeah, I already know what brought you there, but what would someone find if they decide to purchase a copy of this?
First, I'd be honored if they were to get the book, but what they will find that though it happened to me, this is an issue that is in most of the United States and in countries that model their laws after the United States methods and patterns of collecting child support. So if you read the book, you'll see my story. You'll see how I was able to resolve my own case, and you'll see what the components of what a model law should have in it, in my opinion. But you'll find information that will shock your senses on what you think of how the law works or should work. I have bullet pointed about things about myths and facts. See, one of the myths is if you didn't have intimate relations with the woman or girl, you can't be ordered to pay child support. That is completely false. You will see that there's 4 major ways that men and boys can get caught in this trap of paternity fraud. Number 1, signing a paternity confession without proof. Number 2, an incorrect default judgment. Number 3, the marital presumption of paternity. Number 4, mistaken identity. And then you'll see there's an opportunity in the book to tell you about how to connect with me. I do offer a complimentary consultation for people who will complete my intake application. You can connect with me on most of the social media platforms. I believe firmly that as we increase public awareness, we can reach the ears, the hearts, and the minds of the people who don't want to be trapped and are currently trapped, or we can reach people who want to make sure this doesn't happen to them, their sons, and their friends, because there is an opportunity to make the laws fair and just, but it just needs a few committed people to do it.
I want you to give exactly how they can reach you, your website address. I know your book is on Amazon. It's doing very well there. But how can they really reach out, get your book, find you, talk to you? Because I'm telling you, man, you stirred up something. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to reach out because a lot of things you said, it's kind of been hidden and a lot of us aren't familiar with it. So if you don't mind taking some time and just give us where we can come connect with you, basically.
Okay. Thank you. First, thank you, Mark, for allowing me to be on Black Men Talk. It's an issue that doesn't just affect Black men. It affects men and boys across all races, social, economic, and even religious and political backgrounds. So the way you connect with Carnell Smith is at thepaternitycoach.com. ThePaternity coach.com, thepaternitycoach.com. And on that page, you'll see that it's currently pointing to a Linktree site, but I need you to just stay focused on thepaternitycoach.com because it's going to point to its own website shortly after we get it finished and completed. And there you will find an intake application of how to connect with me to get a complimentary consultation where we might be able to discuss what your issue is, what your goals are, and to see if there's a potential that we might work together. There's also a link there that'll take you directly to Amazon where you can get my first book, Trapped by Law, Stop Paying Child Support for Paternity Fraud. It is on Amazon, and you can get it in ebook, or you can get a hard copy of the book. It is in the soft copy, paperback copy of the book. Also provides you with some of the other services I've offered, because I've also been in the DNA testing business. I know people often need legal help. There's two ways you can address your situation for legal. A, you can learn how to represent yourself, especially if you have a 38-year attorney teaching you how to do it. And I actually market his course, and he's been teaching people how to win their cases since about the early 90s. And if you need or prefer to actually have an attorney represent you, depending on what your respective state is, I also offer a legal services type plan. So that is how I finally went back to court and cut my legal fees down to roughly $1,800. And I walked out as a free man. All of my social media links are there for YouTube, Facebook page, Instagram, and X. And there is a major video about me featured on TikTok, created by a friend of mine based on my story that I did in Time Magazine. So I'd be honored to have your audience, if they just want to learn more, go to the YouTube and look at the videos and see this is not a issue that only applies to Black men. It doesn't affect just single men and just teen boys. You'll see it cuts across all of those lines. Thank you so much, Mark.
No, thank you. Before you get out here, I want to just tap on something just a little bit. It was one of the four things that you touched on. And this is something I know most of us don't think about this. I was married at one point in my life. The wife and I, we didn't have children. But the marital part, do you get calls? And I don't want you to give away too much juice here because I'm bringing you back. It's going to go a little deeper. But do you get calls from married men questioning the paternity of their kids?
Yes. I told you I was on the Dr. Phil show with a doctor, and it was his new wife that contacted me because she suspected that one of the two children from his previous marriage was not his, and that child was of a different race. So I did help him get the legal DNA testing. And unfortunately for him, California was hell-bent on making men pay if you don't find out the truth by the child's second birthday. But they don't require the mother to disclose to you that she was doing other things before the child's second birthday. So if you don't happen to find out, or someone, pulls your card and say, hey, brother, I think you need to look under the rock and see what the real truth is, he won't know. But one of my clients, I would say probably one of most horrific cases, he kind of had a blend situation. He got his side chick filed for child support on him for 2 kids. And he was originally just going to go ahead and pay. And at that time, I was providing mobile DNA services for, I think, 4 of the courts here in the Atlanta area. And I happened to be there on site at that court that day. And his lawyer said, oh, no. Step 1 is we need to get a paternity test. But guess who forced the issue with him? His wife forced the issue with him about getting paternity testing. And she was in agreement with the attorney to get paternity tests for the 2 kids with the side chick. Well, he had 2 kids with his wife as well. Well, the side chick says, well, if my kids got to be tested, yours should be tested too. So here he is in the middle with his lawyer. He got both women pointing at each other, and the lawyer steps up with words of wisdom. We're going to test them all. I tested all of them, and none of those children turned out to be his. The 2 kids from his wife weren't his. The 2 kids from the side chick weren't his. And that man had a very deflated ego because he thought he was Mr. Handsome. He thought he was I got it going on. I pop my collar like this. I do what I want. He was very fortunate because he's in a state where one of the best paternity fraud laws exists in the books. He was able to not be ordered to pay child support, and he divorced his wife. He dumped the side chick, and he didn't have to pay child support for any one of them, but his ego was a bit crushed.
Well, Mr. Carnell Smith, hopefully his ego gets over that because he definitely escaped something. I apologize for laughing, man, but laughter is my medicine.
Oh, it's funny. It's funny long as you're not on the receiving end.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you stopping by. This will not be your only stop. You're more than welcome. We'll talk to get you back on. I want to thank you for coming and opening our eyes and our ears, man, to some untruths that's out there. And we should be focused more on the truth. Your last words, sir.
My last words are this. First, truth is a good thing. I'm Carnell Smith. I'm also known as thepaternitycoach.com. Truth is a good thing. However, if the genes don't fit, we must acquit, and we shall not, and we will not be silent and allow men and boys to become income-producing property for the state. That's my position, and I stand 10 toes down on it.
No, I love it. I love it. It's another old phrase my mother used to say all the time, a little different than the one I couldn't remember earlier, that there's a dead cat on the line. You all will figure that out. Well, thank you for giving us a listen. God loves you. We'll get together real soon. Appreciate it.